Blog Talk Radio.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in tonight. This is the Jennifer Hain Show on Fire to Inspire, a show that inspires and motivates you to chase your dreams and achieve your goals and realize that there's people out there going through similar things to what you're going through. Tonight we have a guest expert on the show, Coach D. Anthony. He's a personal empowerment and success coach, and he's also the author of The Nurse in the Delivery Room Slapped Me Once. I've actually read this book. I love it, so I'm really excited to have him on the show tonight. He's going to talk to us about how one can move on after losing a loved one or suffering something traumatic that has caused you to lose your motivation and happiness. He's going to give us some tips on how you can move forward and reclaim that happiness and keep working toward your goals. Coach D. Anthony, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hello, it's great to be here.
Yeah, so you're a personal empowerment and success coach, and then you're also the author of The Nurse in the Delivery Room Slapped Me Once, which I've had the pleasure of reading, and I would love to touch on that in a little bit if we have time. Why don't you talk a little bit about the subject of what somebody goes through when losing a loved one or suffering a traumatic experience and how they can get their motivation and kind of reclaim their life.
Okay, perfect. All right, so for the sake of today's discussion, let's define traumatic as anything that sort of hits you and for at least some period of time turns your life on its side. So there's three basic steps to recovery that I want to talk about here. First is facing the music. Second is resolve to climb out of the dark hole you find yourself in. And the third is embodying the resulting change and deciding to grow. So within that, first of all, facing the music. Here's the thing. Whatever it was, whether it's loss, illness, tragedy, divorce, loss to your job, loneliness, whatever it is, it's happened, and there's no going back and changing it. However, the thing you need to know is that there are things you can do to significantly lessen the impact, okay? And the one that pretty powerful that I think the conditioning in society causes us to tend to have problems with is honoring your feelings. And that means basically being true to your emotions. And if crying is what you need to do, then the truth is that there's some extremely powerful healing qualities in just being able to cry if that's what you need to do, because that's where you can kind of wipe the slate clean and begin to sort of move forward. And so really, when people have been conditioned to believe that crying makes you weak, but in fact what makes you weak is not honoring your feelings and letting all that pressure continue to build up. You know, the perfect metaphor for that is imagine you've got a pot of boiling water and the lid is on tight, and there's nowhere for the pressure to get out. At some point, that lid is going to blow, and you're going to do some damage, you know?
I love that you touched on that because even, my brand being inspiration, and even people nowadays, I feel like in our society, when they just tell you to be positive or keep your chin up, and I say that a lot too, but there's a point where you do honestly have to acknowledge and honor your feelings like what you said, and if you need to just let out your anger through tears or have that release, that's human. That's the right thing to do.
It is not only human, but it is very much critical. It's not just about painting a smile on your face and pretending, okay? The second is talking about it. I'm not sure where the axiom came from that talking doesn't solve anything, but practically everything that's ever been solved in the history of mankind at some critical point needed to be talked about, you know? And it's because we get so caught up internal to our own feelings and there's no other perspective coming in that we sort of get lost in that rabbit hole. But it's important that when we do decide to talk about it, and this is critical, avoid talking to overly negative people. Because if you talk to negative people, you're just going to find yourself getting deeper in that dark place.
Yeah, I mean, you need somebody who's going to help pull you up, not somebody who's going to kick you when you're down or just kind of create that negative thought in your mind that keeps you down, that holds you down.
Absolutely. But now the one thing about the kicking that you just mentioned, though, is that there are those who can kick you and help you. You know, what I see a lot of times is people, and I talked about this at one point in the book, you got to be very careful about your friends that you have around you, because if your friends are just facilitating you staying in the same place and saying, it's okay, you couldn't do anything, it was all against you anyway, that's not helping you get to where you need to get to. Sometimes you need a friend that's going to kick you and say, okay, where are we going to go from here? How are we going to move out of this place? Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so the second step is when you get to the point that you resolve that I've got to do something. I've got to climb out of this hole that I'm in. So what's key there is you've got to tell yourself that better days are possible. If you don't believe it's possible, then that's going to affect all your decisions from there. You've got to remind yourself that you don't have to do it alone. Get help. And you got to know that there's something different that you have to do. You have to proactively decide to make a change. Einstein said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So we've got to know that in the end, nothing really changes. This is one of my catchphrases. Nothing really changes until you decide to.
Right. Now, for somebody who's having a little bit of an issue with finding them, like, you know how a lot of people, whether it's stopping smoking or quitting a habit, for example, they in their head it sounds great, the idea is wonderful, but they still are having that problem committing to change, or more so gathering the motivation to stick with it. What's your advice on that?
Oh, that's simple. Find a good coach. I mean, if you have the support around you and there's someone that is disconnected from the situation enough that you can willingly accept their advice, then that's a beautiful thing. That's going to help you, but the key is not only that ability to have that frank and honest and authentic feedback coming back so that you get different perspectives, but the key that you're going to get if you get the right coach or the right, perhaps, counselor to help you is you're going to get someone who brings some tools to the table that can help you to change things. And those tools are critical. It's just a matter of knowing what to do. So your question is a great lead-in because it's really about getting help, but it's critical that we get the right kind of help. You know,
exactly,
and a perfect example of that is one of the areas that I do a lot of support in is helping people who are dealing with loss. And I'm telling you, you get on some of the pages that are dealing with loss, and everything just is so weighted, is so hopeless. Things will never change. You'll never, you know, I've been in this state for 12 years. And so somebody who is new to this state gets in there and they spend 10 minutes on the site and they feel like, that's it, my life is over. And it doesn't have to be. So getting the right kind of help is critical.
Yes. And so that, I'm sure, leads into embodying, how you said, a result and change to grow. How would let's go into that step there.
First there is, and I do want to touch on one other one from the resolving to climb out. Get rid of any victim cards that you're holding on to. Okay, that is an absolutely critical one. You got to realize that whatever happened to you is not an example of the universe picking on you. You know, tragedies and mishaps and things of that nature are indiscriminate. They happen to anyone. You know, it's just like if any of us decide to step off the edge of a roof, gravity isn't going to care whether we got a good heart or a bad heart. And so when we can get rid of that sense that we're a victim, then it starts to, again, promote the healing. And so moving on into the section that you mentioned, the embodying the resulting change and deciding to grow, the first and most important item there is find purpose. You know, ask yourself questions like, what are you supposed to learn from this situation? And what impact is this supposed to have for you in your life. And the perfect example of that, I'm a living example of that, because in my life, the reason I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm coaching and helping people change their lives. The reason why I wrote the book that you mentioned, the reason why I'm on this call, primarily goes back to two very negative situations that happened in my life. First and foremost was losing my mother so many years ago, and actually getting to a point in all of that where I couldn't find a reason to want to live, and coming through that and finding a reason, and then a few years down the road, I'm in my job. I'm in a 20-year career as an executive in corporate America, largely defining me, and all of a sudden that job didn't exist anymore. They decided they wanted to cut some costs, and I was part of the cost that they wanted to cut. So I had a decision to make at that point. Okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to go back and get back on that corporate ladder? And I decided life was trying to tell me something. I decided that it was time for me to do something different and start making a difference, and that's where the coaching came. And so the point in all of that is, when these tragedies hit us, if we look for a purpose, if we're open to what the possibilities are. Part of this that goes back to loss, as I said, a big part of what I do is I help people to be able to deal with devastating loss and be able to find life again.
And that's exactly it, is finding life outside of that, because there's a time when you're going through a situation like that, you don't think that life can exist any longer. It's easy to get that tunnel vision. And so we do, we have to wrap up the show, but D'Anthony, why don't you tell us how somebody can reach out to you, whether it's on your website or through Facebook?
Definitely would love to connect. You can connect with me through Facebook, search on Life Coach D'Anthony. I also have a page for helping people deal with loss called Beyond the Heartache. Definitely check that page out. And for any of your listeners today, they can actually go to, if they're at a point where they're tired of being stuck and they're ready to begin removing some of the long-standing obstacles in their life and start, living in a way that they desire to live, they can actually go to www.tiredofbeingstuck.com and grab one of 5 free available coaching slots that I've set up, coaching consultation calls. And all they have to do is mention your show, and I'm guaranteeing the first 5. After that, it'll be hit or miss depending upon availability, but they can get on a one-on-one call with me and start to talk about what's going on and how they can turn it around and get some of the very secrets that I've been talking about on the call.
Great. Thank you so much. I mean, I think that it's awesome that you're doing what you're doing, and it's an easy URL to remember to your website there. Tired of being stuck. I think it's plain and simple that way.
Tiredofbeingstuck.com.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so thank you so much for your advice. And for the listeners out there, you heard him, face the music. You got to resolve to climb out of the hole, and then embodying your resulting change to grow. Make sure you find a purpose and what you can learn from your situation. Thank you so much, Coach D'Anthony. I appreciate all that you do, and we'll make sure to check out your website, and make sure you tune into his website so you can get one of those 5 spots.
Yep, and daily inspiration at Life Coach D'Anthony on Facebook. So.
All right, excellent. Thank you so very much, and you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and stay inspired. Thank you so much for tuning into the show this evening. If you did happen to get cut off tonight, you can always go to jenniferhain.com to hear the rest of the show. Make sure you tune in next Monday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is Jennifer Hain, and you all have a great week.